testing whether the crew would really follow a human commander when things got desperate. "All stations, begin preparations for combat," Katie ordered. "But first, I want to hear ideas from everyone. Look at this scenario and tell me what you see." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Taishra raised her hand. "The enemy fleets are approaching from 3 directions, but they are not coordinating their attacks. If we could somehow get them to interfere with each other... "Good thinking," Katie said. "What else?" Danny spoke up. "The colony has a planetary defense grid, but it is powered down. If we could get it online, it would give us additional firepower." "Excellent. More ideas?" For the next 30 minutes, the crew brainstormed solutions. Katie listened to every suggestion, no matter how strange it seemed. Gradually, she began to see a plan forming. It was a crazy plan. It required perfect timing, incredible risk-taking, and the complete cooperation of every crew member. But it might actually work. "Here is what we are going to do," Katie announced. She outlined her strategy, explaining how each crew member would contribute to the plan. When she finished, the bridge was quiet. Then Grixinal started laughing, a sound like machinery clicking together. "That is the most insane plan I have heard," the old engineer said. "I love it." One by one, the other crew members agreed. Even the aliens who had been loyal to Zekthar seemed excited about trying something new. "1 hour until the mission begins," Katie announced. "Let us show Admiral Stone what this crew can really do." The next hour passed quickly. Everyone worked together to prepare for the mission. Katie was amazed at how efficiently the crew functioned, when they were not afraid of making mistakes. When the exercise began, Katie put her plan into action. Instead of trying to fight 3 enemy fleets at once, she used the Shadowbane to trick them into attacking each other. She sent false signals that made it look like one enemy fleet was betraying the others. While they fought among themselves, Katie led her crew in quick strikes to damage their key ships. At the same time, Danny and Grixinal worked together to bring the colony's defense grid online. Taishra used her navigation skills to plot attack runs that took advantage of the planets, gravity, and magnetic field. Kexvo's security teams prepared for boarding actions that would disable enemy vessels from the inside. The battle was intense and dangerous. Several times, Katie thought they were going to lose. But each time, one of her crew members came up with a solution. They worked together like a real team, covering for each other's weaknesses and building on each other's strengths. After 2 hours of fighting, the last enemy ship was destroyed. The colony was saved, and the Shadowbane had survived with minimal damage. "Mission complete," the ship's computer announced. "All objectives achieved." The bridge erupted in celebration. Crew members were cheering, hugging each other, and laughing with relief and joy. Katie had never seen Vorthans, Mantarians, and Aquilians celebrating together before. "Attention, Shadowbane." Admiral Stone's voice came over the communications. "Outstanding performance. Please report to base for debriefing." As they flew back to the space station, Katie felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Commander Zekthar standing behind her command chair. "You did well, human," he said quietly. His voice was different now, not friendly, but respectful. "Thank you," Katie replied. "I still do not understand how you did it," Zekthar continued. "Your tactics make no sense according to military doctrine." Katie thought about this. Maybe. That is the point. Sometimes the best way to win is to do something your enemy does not expect. Zekthar nodded slowly. "Perhaps there are things I can learn from humans after all." 2 days later, Katie received official word from Coalition Fleet Command. Her promotion to lieutenant commander was made permanent, and she was given full command of the Shadowbane. Commander Zekthar was offered a position at the Coalition Military Academy, where he would study new tactical approaches. Katie stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. Jake Collins walked up beside her. "So how does it feel to be the first human to command a Vorthan vessel?" he asked. Katie smiled. "It feels like the beginning of something new." "Any regrets?" Katie thought about the humiliation she had endured, the risks she had taken, and the challenges that still lay ahead. "No regrets," she said. "Sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in, even when it seems impossible." She looked around the bridge at her crew, aliens and humans working together, each contributing their unique skills to the team. It was exactly what she had dreamed of when she joined the Coalition fleet. "Besides," Katie added with a grin, "someone had to show these aliens what humans are really capable of." Outside the viewport, the stars stretched out endlessly, full of possibilities for new adventures and new challenges. Katie Morgan, the rookie who had been humiliated by an alien commander, was now ready to lead her crew into whatever the universe had in store for them, and she knew that together they could handle anything. Zekthar was shaking with rage, but he was also a military officer, bound by the same regulations as everyone else. "The challenge is valid," the computer announced. "Command transfer protocols are now in effect." Katie had done it. She had challenged a Vorthan commander and won, but she knew that the real test was just beginning. The silence on the bridge stretched for what felt like hours. Katie stood in the center of the room, surrounded by aliens who were staring at her in shock. She had just done something that no one thought was possible. She had challenged a Vorthan commander and won. Commander Zekthar stood frozen beside his command chair. His 4 arms hung at his sides, and his yellow eyes burned with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Katie could see him struggling with what had just happened. "Computer," Zekthar said finally, his voice low and dangerous, "verify the command transfer protocol." "Command transfer verified," the ship's computer replied. "Section 47 Alpha has been properly invoked. Lieutenant Katie Morgan is now the acting commander of this vessel, pending review by Coalition Fleet." Command. The words hit the bridge like a shockwave. Several crew members gasped. Others looked like they could not believe what they were hearing. Katie felt her heart pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "Thank you, computer. Commander Zekthar, you are relieved of duty." Zekthar's massive frame shook with anger. For a moment, Katie thought he might attack her. His hands clenched into fists, and his breathing became heavy and loud. But then Lieutenant Commander Vex stepped forward. "Sir," he said quietly to Zekthar, "the regulations are clear." The challenge was valid. Zekthar looked at Vex, then at the other crew members. Katie could see him realizing that everyone on the bridge had witnessed what happened. There was no way to deny it or cover it up. "This is not overhuman," Zekthar said. His voice was like ice. "You may have won this battle, but you will not be able to command this crew. They will not follow you." "We will see," Katie replied calmly. Zekthar turned and walked toward the bridge exit. But at the doorway, he stopped and looked back. "I will remain on this ship. I want to watch you fail." After he left, the bridge remained quiet. Katie could feel the weight of every eye on her. These crew members had just seen their commander defeated by a human they had laughed at 2 days ago. They did not know what to think or feel. Katie walked to the command chair and sat down. It was enormous, designed for a Vorthan body, and she looked tiny in it. But she sat up straight and spoke in a clear, confident voice. "All stations report status." One by one, the crew members gave their reports. Their voices were uncertain, but they followed the order. Katie listened carefully to each report, asking questions and making sure she understood every system on the ship. "Taishira," Katie said to the Aquilian navigator, "your course plodding through the asteroid field was excellent. That maneuver saved the station." Taishra's gills fluttered with surprise. "Thank you, Commander." "Danny," Katie continued, "your engine modifications gave us the speed advantage we needed. Well done." The human engineer smiled. "Happy to help, Commander." Katie went through the entire crew, acknowledging each person's contribution to their victory. She had noticed that Zekthar never did this. He gave orders and expected obedience, but he never thanked anyone or recognized good work. "Computer," Katie said, "open a communication channel to Admiral Stone." "Channel open," the computer replied. "Admiral Stone, this is Lieutenant Commander Katie Morgan, aboard the Shadowbane. I need to report a change in command structure." There was a pause before Admiral Stone replied. "Commander Morgan? What happened to Commander Zekthar?" "I invoked Section 47 Alpha and challenged his command. The ship's computer has verified the transfer. I am now the acting commander of this vessel." Another pause, longer this time. "I see. Commander Morgan, please prepare a full report on the events leading to this command change. Coalition Fleet Command will want to review everything." "Understood, Admiral. Will there be additional exercises today?" "Yes. In fact, I have a special scenario planned. Something that will test your new command structure thoroughly." Katie felt a chill run down her spine. Admiral Stone's tone suggested that this next test would be even more difficult than the last one. "We are ready, Admiral." "Good. Stand by for new mission parameters." The communication ended, and Katie turned back to her crew. She could see concern on many faces. They were wondering if she could really handle being in command, especially if Admiral Stone was planning something challenging. "Listen, everyone," Katie said, standing up from the command chair. "I know this situation is unusual. A human has never commanded a Vorthan ship before. Some of you might be worried about whether I can do this job." She looked around the bridge, making eye contact with each crew member. "I cannot do this job alone. No commander can. But together, I believe we can be the best crew in the Coalition fleet." Grixel spoke up from his engineering station. "What will you do differently from Commander Zekthar?" It was a fair question, and Katie had been thinking about the answer. "I will listen to all of you. Every person on this ship has skills and knowledge that can help us succeed. I will not ignore good ideas just because they come from someone who is not a commander." "And if we make mistakes?" asked Kexvo, the Zephyrian security officer. "We will learn from them," Katie said. "Mistakes are how we get better. The only real failure is refusing to adapt when something is not working." Jake Collins raised his hand. "Commander, what about the crew members who supported Zekthar? Not everyone here is happy about this change." Katie nodded. This was something she had worried about. "Anyone who wants to transfer off this ship can request it. I will not force anyone to serve under my command. But if you stay, I expect you to do your job to the best of your ability. In return, I promise to do everything I can to help you succeed." Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication system activated. "Attention, Shadowbane. This is Admiral Stone. Your next mission begins in 1 hour. Mission parameters are being transmitted now." Katie returned to the command chair and activated the main display. The new mission appeared on screen, and Katie felt her stomach drop. It was called Impossible Odds, and it lived up to its name. The scenario was brutal. The Shadowbane would be alone, cut off from support, defending a colony from 3 separate enemy fleets. The enemy would have overwhelming numbers and superior firepower. Most crews that attempted this mission lasted less than 20 minutes. This is a test, Katie realized. Admiral Stone was not just testing her command abilities. She was. Katie studied the tactical display with new eyes. Now she could see everything: ship positions, weapon ranges, energy levels, and the locations of all the obstacles in the system. The situation was even more complex than she had realized. Zekthar took his position in the command chair. All ships formed standard defensive formation around the space station. Weapons to full power, shields maximum. Katie watched as the Vorthan ships moved into their traditional formation. It was a strong defensive position, but it had the same weakness as all rigid formations. It could not adapt quickly to unexpected attacks. "Sir," Katie said, "I recommend we modify our formation slightly. If we move 2 ships to cover the asteroid field approach." "No," Zekthar said firmly. "We use proven tactics. Standard formation is sufficient." "But sir, the energy storms will interfere with our sensors. If the enemy comes through the asteroids, we will not see them until—" I said no. Zekthar's voice echoed through the bridge. "Follow your orders, human. Watch and learn." Katie fell silent. But she continued to study the tactical display, looking for weaknesses and opportunities. She was learning everything she could about how Zekthar commanded and how the enemy might attack. "Enemy forces detected," reported Taisher from the navigation station. "Multiple contacts approaching from Sector 4. All ships, prepare to engage," Zekthar ordered. "Maintain formation. Fire when targets come into range." The enemy ships appeared on the tactical display as red dots moving toward the space station. They were coming from the direction Zekthar expected, and his defensive formation was ready for them. But Katie saw something else. More red dots were appearing on the edge of the sensor range, moving through the asteroid field just as she had predicted. The energy storms were making it hard to detect them, but they were there. "Sir," Katie said urgently, "additional enemy forces in the asteroid field. They are using the energy storms to mask their approach." Zihar glanced at the display. "Sensor. Ghosts. The energy storms create false readings. Ignore them." "Sir, I do not think they are false readings. The movement patterns are too organized. They are real ships. Human, you are seeing what you want to see. Focus on the real enemy in front of us." Katie wanted to argue, but she forced herself to stay quiet. She watched as the main enemy force engaged Zekthar's ships. The Vorthan formation held strong, and they were winning the battle. But the red dots in the asteroid field kept moving closer to the space station. 10 minutes into the battle, Katie's fears came true. A dozen enemy ships suddenly burst out of the asteroid field, heading straight for the undefended side of the space station. "Enemy breakthrough," shouted the weapons officer. Multiple contacts attacking the station. Zekthar's formation was facing the wrong direction. By the time they could turn around, the space station would be destroyed. "All ships, emergency turn," Zekthar ordered. "Protect the station." But it was too late. The enemy ships reached the station and began their attack. Explosions lit up the tactical display as the station's shields failed. "Station shields down to 40%, reported Taishra. "Hull damage on multiple levels." Katie could not stay quiet any longer. "Sir, request permission to coordinate defensive maneuvers." "What?" Zekthar was focused on the battle, trying to save the situation. "The enemy is using human-style tactics, multiple small attacks from unexpected angles. I know how to counter. Please, let me help." Zekthar looked at the tactical display. His formation was falling apart. The space station was taking heavy damage. His proven tactics were not working. "You have 2 minutes," he said. "If you make things worse, you will face court-martial." Katie moved to the central tactical controls. For the first time since arriving on the ship, she felt truly alive. This was what she had trained for. "All ships, this is Lieutenant Morgan with new tactical instructions," she announced over the communication system. "Break formation and divide into 3 groups." "What are you doing?" Zekthar demanded. "Using the enemy's tactics against them." Katie replied. "Taishra, Plot a course through the asteroid field. Danny, I need maximum power to engines. Grixnell, can you reroute shield power to create overlapping fields? The crew members looked at Zekthar, waiting for his approval. He nodded grimly. What happened next was unlike anything the crew had ever experienced. Instead of fighting as one big formation, Katie split them into small, fast groups that could move independently. She sent one group through the asteroid field to attack the enemy from behind. She had another group use the energy storms to hide their approach. The third group stayed to defend the station, but they moved constantly, making them hard to hit. Enemy formation breaking apart, reported the weapons officer. They are confused by our new attack pattern. Katie smiled. That is the point. Keep moving. Do not let them predict where we will be next. For the next 20 minutes, Katie orchestrated a battle unlike anything the Vorthan crew had ever seen. She used every crew member's strengths, Tishra's navigation skills to plot courses through dangerous areas, the Mantarian weapons officer's precision to hit specific targets, Kexvo's security team to coordinate boarding actions. Most importantly, she listened to everyone. When Grixnell suggested a way to boost shield power, she incorporated it immediately. When Danny had an idea about using the engine exhaust as a weapon, she found a way to make it work. The enemy forces designed to defeat. Traditional military tactics could not handle Katie's improvised strategy. One by one, their ships were destroyed or disabled. Final enemy ship destroyed, announced the weapons officer. Station saved, minimal damage to our forces. The bridge erupted in cheers. Crew members who had never shown emotion before were celebrating and congratulating each other. Even the aliens who had laughed at Katie 2 days ago were looking at her with respect, but Katie was not paying attention to the celebration. She was watching Commander Zekthar. The Vorthan commander was staring at the tactical display, seeing the results of the battle. His rigid formation had failed. His proven tactics had nearly cost him the mission. And a young human he had humiliated and dismissed, had saved the day. "Attention all ships," came Admiral Stone's voice over the communications. "Exercise concluded. Outstanding performance by the crew of the Shadowbane. Please report to base for debriefing." Katie stepped away from the tactical controls and faced Zekthar. "Sir, I formally invoke Section 47 Alpha of the Coalition Emergency Protocols. I challenge your command of this vessel on the grounds of tactical incompetence." The bridge went completely silent. Every crew member stared at Katie in shock. No one had ever challenged a Vorthan commander before. Zekthar's yellow eyes burned with fury. "You dare?" "Computer," Katie called out, "analyze the tactical performance of this exercise. Compare the effectiveness of standard formation tactics versus adaptive small group tactics in this scenario." The ship's computer spoke in its calm, mechanical voice. Analysis complete. Adaptive tactics resulted in 340% improved efficiency, 95% reduction in friendly casualties, and 78% faster mission completion. Standard formation tactics would have resulted in mission failure. Katie looked directly at Zekthar. "The computer confirms that my tactical approach was superior. According to Section 47 Alpha, command of this vessel should transfer to the officer who demonstrates superior ability during crisis situations." "Thank you," Katie said. "That means a lot." "You were right about the tactical weakness," Danny added. "I ran some simulations after the exercise. If we had adjusted our formation like you suggested, we could have avoided most of the damage." Katie sat down at the table. "Can I ask you all something? How long have you been serving under Commander Zekthar?" 2 years, Danny said. 18 months, said Tishra. 3 years, said Kexvo. His ears drooped when he said it. "And how do you feel about the way things are run?" The 3 crew members looked at each other nervously. Finally, Danny spoke. "We do our jobs. We follow orders. That is what we are supposed to do." But Katie could hear what he was not saying. She could see it in their faces. These crew members were not happy, but they were afraid to say so directly. What if things could be different? Katie asked quietly. "Different how?" Taishara asked. "What? If there was a commander who listened to ideas from all crew members, who used everyone's strengths instead of just giving orders?" Kexvoa's ears perked up. "That sounds nice. But it is not going to happen." "Why not?" "Because this is a Vorthan ship," Danny said. "And Vorthans do not change the way they do things." Katie leaned forward. But what if it was not a Vorthan giving? The orders? The three aliens stared at her. Finally, Taishara spoke. "Katie, what are you thinking about doing?" Katie looked at each of them carefully. These were good people who wanted to do their best work. They were just trapped in a system that did not let them. "I am thinking about tomorrow's exercise," Katie said. "And I am thinking that maybe it is time for someone to try a different approach." She stood up from the table. "Thank you for the conversation. It has been very helpful." As Katie walked back to her quarters, she felt more confident about her plan. She was not the only one who saw the problems with Zikthara's leadership. There were crew members who would support her if she could prove herself. But she also knew that tomorrow would be the biggest risk of her life. She would get one chance to show what she could do. If she failed, not only would her career be over, but she would let down all the people who were starting to believe in her. Katie spent the rest of the night preparing. She studied star charts, reviewed tactical manuals, and practiced the speeches she might need to give. She thought about every possible thing that could go wrong and tried to plan for it. When the morning alarm sounded, Katie was ready. Today she would either prove that humans belonged in the Coalition fleet, or she would go down trying. Either way, she would not spend another day being humiliated, while good people suffered under bad leadership. It was time to show Commander Zekthar what a human could really do. The next morning, Katie arrived on the bridge early. She wanted to be at her station before Commander Zekthar arrived, so she could observe everything that happened during the briefing. The bridge was busy with preparations for the day's exercise. Today would be different from yesterday. Admiral Stone had announced that they would face a much more difficult scenario, one designed to test how crews performed under extreme pressure. Katie watched as the crew members took their positions. She noticed that several of them looked at her when they thought no one was watching. Danny Rodriguez gave her a small nod. Taishara smiled nervously. Even Chief Engineer Grixno, who was visiting the bridge to check systems, looked in her direction. They were all waiting to see what she would do. Commander Zekthar entered the bridge like a storm. His heavy footsteps echoed through the room, and every crew member straightened up when they saw him. He was wearing his full dress uniform today, covered with medals and honors from previous battles. "Attention!" Lieutenant Commander Vex called out. Everyone on the bridge stood at attention. "Today we face a real challenge," Zekthar announced. "Admiral Stone thinks her advanced scenarios will test us. She is wrong. We will show her that Vorthan military discipline is superior to human chaos." He walked to the center of the bridge and activated the main display. A three-dimensional map appeared, showing a complex star system with asteroids, space stations, and dangerous energy fields. "The scenario is called Last Stand," Zekthar continued. "We must defend a civilian space station from overwhelming enemy forces. The enemy will have more ships than us, better weapons, and superior positioning. Most crews fail this test." Katie studied the tactical display carefully. The scenario was indeed difficult. The space station was surrounded by an asteroid field that would limit ship movement. Energy storms in the area would interfere with sensors and communications, and the enemy would attack from multiple directions at once. But we will not fail. Zekthar said, we will use proven Vorthan tactics. We will maintain proper formation. We will follow military doctrine. And we will achieve victory through superior discipline. Katie saw the problem immediately. Zekthar was planning to fight this battle the same way Vorthans always fought, with rigid formations and predictable tactics. But this scenario was designed to punish that kind of thinking. It required flexibility, creativity, and the ability to adapt quickly to changing situations. All stations, report readiness, Zekthar ordered. One by one, the crew members reported that their systems were ready. When it was Katie's turn, she stood up from her communication station. Sir, before we begin, I would like to volunteer for a different assignment. The bridge went completely quiet. Zekthar turned to look at Katie with his burning yellow eyes. What did you say? Katie took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. I volunteer to serve as tactical advisor for this exercise. Zekthar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Tactical advisor? You are a communications officer. You watch screens and report messages, nothing more. Yes, sir, but I have studied this type of scenario extensively. I believe I could provide valuable insight into valuable insight. Zekthar's voice was getting louder. From a human child who has never seen real combat, who embarrassed herself yesterday by questioning my orders. Katie felt the eyes of every crew member on her. This was her chance to either prove herself or destroy her career completely. Sir, I was correct about the tactical weakness yesterday. My warning could have prevented the damage we took. The bridge was so quiet that Katie could hear the hum of the ship's engines. Zekthar's face was turning darker with anger. You dare to suggest that I made a mistake? I suggest that everyone makes mistakes, sir, even experienced commanders. The important thing is learning from them and adapting to new situations. Zekthar stepped closer to Katie. He was so tall that she had to crane her neck to look at his face. And you think you can do better than me? This was the moment Katie had been waiting for. I think different perspectives can help any commander make better decisions. I would like the chance to prove that. For a long moment, Zekthar stared down at her. Katie could feel her heart pounding, but she did not look away. Finally, the Vorthan commander smiled, a cold, cruel smile. Very well, human. You want to be tactical advisor? I will give you that chance. But when you fail, and you will fail, you will spend the rest of this assignment cleaning waste recyclers. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Good. Vex, give the human access to the tactical systems. Let her see how real warfare works. Lieutenant Commander Vex looked surprised, but he followed orders. He led Katie to a station next to the main tactical display, where she could see all the ship movements and weapon systems. Exercise begins in 5 minutes. Admiral Stone's voice came over the communications. Defending forces, take your positions. Enemy forces will begin their attack shortly. Katie could not sleep that night. She lay in her small quarters, staring at the ceiling and thinking about what she had learned. The ship was quiet around her, but her mind was racing with ideas. She got up and sat at the small desk in her room. Using her personal computer, she began to research everything she could about Coalition fleet regulations. There had to be something in the rules that could help her. After 2 hours of reading, Katie found what she was looking for. Buried deep in the Coalition emergency protocols was a regulation called Section 47 Alpha. It said that any officer could challenge a commander's authority if they could prove that the commander's decisions were putting the crew in danger. But there was a catch. The challenging officer had to demonstrate superior tactical ability during an actual crisis or high-level simulation, and the ship's computer had to agree that the challenge was valid. Katie read the regulation 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. This was her chance, but it was also incredibly dangerous. If she failed, her career would be over. She might even face court-martial for insubordination. But if she succeeded, Katie closed her computer and left her quarters. The ship's corridors were dimly lit during night shift. Most of the crew was asleep, but she knew some aliens would. Beyond duty, she walked quietly through the ship, making mental notes of everything she saw. She memorized the locations of important systems, emergency controls, and crew stations. If her plan was going to work, she needed to know this ship better than anyone in the engineering section. Katie found who she was looking for: Chief Engineer. Grixinol was a Mantarian who had been in the Coalition fleet for over 20 years. He was older than most of the crew, and Katie had noticed that he did not seem as afraid of the others. "Excuse me, Chief," Katie said softly. Grixinol looked up from the engine controls he was checking. His large compound eyes reflected the light in a way that made them look like jewels. "Human officer, you should be sleeping." "I could not sleep," Katie said. "I was wondering if you could help me understand something about the ship's systems." Grixinol studied her for a moment. "What do you want to know?" Katie had prepared for this question. "I am trying to learn how the different systems work together. In my training, we mostly studied human ships. Alien technology is new to me." This was partly true. Katie did want to learn about the ship, but she also wanted to learn about Grixinol. For the next hour, the old engineer showed Katie around the engine room. He explained how the power systems worked, how the shields were controlled, and how the weapons systems drew energy from the main. Reactor. As they talked, Katie began to understand that Grixinol was not happy with how things were run on the ship. He never said anything directly, but she could hear it in his voice. "Chief," Katie said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "You may ask. Have you ever served on ships with human commanders?" Grixinol stopped working and looked at her. "Why? Do you want to know this?" "I am just curious about how different species work together." The old Mantarian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Yes, I served on 3 human ships before being assigned here. Captain Rodriguez on the UES Explorer, Captain Williams on the UES Horizon, Captain Murphy on the UES Freedom." "What were they like?" "Different," Grixinol said simply. "They listened to their crews. They asked questions. They tried new things. When old things did not work." Katie felt her heart beat faster. "And here?" Grixinol looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Here we do things the same way, every time, even when those ways do not work." "Is that why we had trouble in today's exercise?" The engineer's eyes focused on Katie more sharply. "You noticed problems? I saw the weakness in our formation before. The humans attacked. But when I tried to warn Commander Zekthar... He did not listen," Grixinol finished. "This is not the first time." Katie took a deep breath. This was the moment to take a risk. "Chief, what would happen if someone challenged the commander's authority?" Grixinol's entire body went very still. "That is a dangerous question, human." "But theoretically," Katie pressed, "if someone could prove they were a better tactical commander." "You are talking about Section 47 Alpha," Grixinol said quietly. Katie was surprised. "You know about it?" "I have been in this fleet for 20 years. I know all the regulations." The old engineer moved closer to Katie. "But I also know that challenging a Vorthan commander is not something anyone has tried before, especially not a human. What do you think would happen?" Grixinol considered. "This. If the challenger succeeded, it could change everything. If they failed..." He made a gesture that Katie did not understand, but it did not look good. "Thank you for the lesson about the engines," Katie said, "and for the advice." As Katie walked back toward her quarters, she found Jake Collins waiting for her in one of the corridors. The other human looked worried. "Katie, "What are you doing walking around the ship at night?" "I could not sleep," she said. "What about you?" "Same reason." Jake looked around to make sure they were alone. "Listen, I heard some of the crew talking after the exercise today. Some of them think you were right about that tactical weakness." "Really?" "Yeah. The Aquilian navigator, Taishra, said you spotted the problem before anyone else. And Danny Rodriguez in engineering thinks Zekthar made a mistake by not listening to you." Katie felt the spark of hope. "How many crew members feel this way?" "I do not know exactly, but more than you might think." Jake paused. "Katie, are you planning something? Because if you are, you need to be very careful. Zekthar is not just mean. He is dangerous. He has ended careers before." "I am just trying to do my job," Katie said. Jake looked like he did not believe her, but he did not press the issue. "Just be careful, okay? I do not want to see you get hurt." After Jake left, Katie continued back to her quarters. But she took a longer route, one that passed through more sections of the ship. She wanted to see who else was awake and what they were doing. In the mess hall, she found 3 crew members sitting together at a table. One was Danny Rodriguez, the human engineer Jake had mentioned. The other 2 were aliens she had not met before. Katie hesitated, then walked over to their table. "Excuse me, I am Lieutenant Morgan. I do not think we have been introduced." Danny looked up and smiled. "Hey, Lieutenant. These are my friends. This is Taishra, our navigation specialist." He pointed to the young Aquilian Katie had noticed earlier. "And this is Kexvo, one of our security officers." Kexvo was a Zephyrian, covered in short gray fur with large ears that moved constantly. Katie had read that Zephyrians had excellent hearing and were naturally good at working in teams. "Nice to meet you both," Katie said. "We heard about what happened on the bridge today," Taishra said. Her voice was soft and musical. "We want you to know that not everyone agreed with how the commander treated you." The next few hours passed slowly for Katie. She sat at her communication station, watching the screens and listening to the radio chatter between ships. The training exercise would begin soon, and the bridge was busy with preparations. Katie watched everything carefully. She was starting to understand how the ship worked and how the crew behaved. The aliens were not all the same, she realized. Some of them seemed to like Commander Zekthar, but others looked afraid of him. There was a young Aquilian at the navigation station. Aquilians had blue skin and could breathe underwater. This one had gills on her neck that opened and closed when she was nervous. Katie noticed the gills moving a lot whenever Zekthar spoke to her. At the weapons control station sat an older Mantarian. Mantarians looked like giant insects with 6 arms and big compound eyes. This one moved very carefully and precisely. But Katie saw him flinch every time Zekthar raised his voice. The most interesting thing Katie noticed was how the crew talked to each other when Zekthar was not listening. They whispered a lot. They looked around before speaking. They acted like they were afraid of their own commander. "Attention all ships," came a voice over the communication system. "This is Admiral Lisa Stone aboard the UES Defiant. The training exercise will begin in 30 minutes. All vessels take your starting positions." Katie had heard of Admiral Stone. She was one of the best human commanders in the fleet. Katie felt a little proud that a human was running the exercise, even though she was stuck watching communication screens. Zekthar stood up from his command chair. "All stations, prepare for combat simulation. We will show these humans how real warriors fight." The bridge became very busy. Aliens ran back and forth, checking systems and preparing weapons. Katie noticed that everyone worked hard, but they did not seem happy about it. They looked stressed and worried. "Navigation, set course for Sector 7, Zekthar ordered. "Yes, sir," said the young Aquilian. Her gills were moving very fast, Now Katie looked at the tactical display again. She could see all the ships moving into position. The human fleet was led by Admiral Stone's ship, the Defiant. There were also ships from other alien races in the exercise. But Katie kept looking at their own formation. The weakness she had spotted earlier was still there. In fact, it was getting worse as they moved into position. If the enemy came from the right angle, they could hit the Shadowbane's engines before anyone could react. She wanted to say something, but she remembered what had happened earlier. Zekthar had humiliated her in front of everyone. He had made it clear that he did not want her opinions. But this was just a training exercise, Katie told herself. No one would really get hurt. Maybe she should just stay quiet and let Zekthar learn from his mistakes. Exercise begins now. Admiral Stone's voice came over the communications. All ships, you are cleared to engage. Immediately, Katie's screens lit up with activity. Ships were moving, firing simulated weapons and trying to outmaneuver each other. It was like watching a deadly dance in space. Zekthar was giving orders quickly. Weapons, target the human cruiser on our port side. Navigation, bring us around to attack position. Shields to maximum power. The crew followed his orders perfectly. Katie had to admit that Zekthar knew how to fight. His tactics were good, and his crew was well trained. The Shadowbane was a powerful ship, and it was holding its own against the human vessels. But Katie could see what Zekthar could not see. Admiral Stone was not fighting the way Vorthan enemies usually fought. She was using human tactics, which were different from what Zekthar expected. Human tactics were often unpredictable. They did not always follow the rules that other species used. Sometimes, humans would do things that seemed crazy, but worked. Anyway, Katie watched as Admiral Stone's ships moved in patterns that confused the alien commanders. The humans would attack from one direction, then suddenly appear somewhere else. They would pretend to retreat and circle back for a surprise attack. Zekthar was getting frustrated. Katie could see it in the way he moved and the tone of his voice. Why are these humans not fighting properly? He muttered. Sir, said Lieutenant Commander Vex, their tactics are unconventional. Perhaps we should adjust our formation. No, Zekthar said firmly. We stick to proper military doctrine. The humans will make a mistake soon, and we will exploit it. But the humans did not make mistakes. If anything, they seemed to be winning. Katie watched as several alien ships were marked as destroyed by the exercise computers. Their lights went out, and they had to stop fighting. Then Katie saw something that made her heart race. 3 human ships were moving into position for an attack run. They were coming from exactly the angle Katie had worried about. They were heading straight for the Shadowbane's weak spot. Commander, Katie said, standing up from her station. 3 ships approaching from coordinates 127 mark. 83. They're targeting our engines. Zekthar barely looked at her. I can see them, human. Weapons, prepare to fire on those ships. But sir, Katie said, our shields are weakest in that section. If they hit us there, silence, Zekthar roared. I know how to defend my ship. Weapons fire. The Shadowbane's weapons shot bright beams of energy at the approaching human ships. But the humans were ready for this. They scattered and came in from different angles, just like Katie knew they would. The simulated weapons fire hit the Shadowbane right where Katie had predicted. The ship shook, and alarms started ringing. Red lights flashed all over the bridge. Engine. Power down to 60%, reported the Mantarian at the weapons station. Shields failing in Section 4, called out another alien. Zekthar's face was dark with anger. How did they know where to hit us? Katie wanted to say, I told you so, but she kept quiet. She was learning that sometimes it was better to watch. And wait. The exercise continued for another hour. Admiral Stone's human fleet won decisively. They had used tactics that the alien commanders could not predict or counter. When it was over, many of the alien ships had been marked as destroyed or disabled. The Shadowbane had survived, but just barely. They had taken heavy damage in the simulation, and Zekthar was not happy about it. "Attention all ships, Admiral." Stone's voice came over the communications again. Exercise concluded. All vessels returned to base for debriefing. "Good work, everyone." Zekthar slammed his fist on his chair again. "Good work? We barely survived. These human tactics are not honorable. They do not fight like warriors." Katie listened to this and felt angry again. Admiral Stone had fought brilliantly. She had used her ship's strengths and found the weaknesses in the alien formations. That was not dishonorable. That was smart. As the crew prepared to return to base, Katie overheard conversations between the aliens. Many of them were talking about the exercise and what had gone wrong. "The humans were too fast," one alien said. "They did not follow proper attack patterns," said another. But Katie also heard different voices. The young Aqualian navigator was talking quietly to the Mantarian weapons officer. "Maybe we should have listened to the human," the Aqualian whispered. "She saw the weakness before the attack came." "Zashar does not like to be questioned," the Mantarian replied. "But you are right. The human spotted something we all missed." Katie pretended not to hear, but inside she felt a small spark of hope. Not all of the crew was against her. Some of them were starting to see that she might have something valuable to offer. As they flew back to base, Katie continued to observe and learn. She watched how each alien worked, what their strengths were, and what made them nervous. She studied the ship's systems and memorized the layout of the controls. Most importantly, she began to understand this crew had potential. They were skilled and dedicated, but they were being held back by fear. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of Zekthar's anger. Fear of trying new things. Katie had an idea forming in her mind. It was a dangerous idea, and it could get her in serious trouble. But it might also be the key to proving that humans belonged in this mixed crew. She just needed to wait for the right moment to put her plan into action. That evening, as the ship docked at the space station, Katie heard Zekthar talking to his senior officers near the bridge entrance. "Tomorrow we will have more advanced exercises," he was saying. "I want to show Admiral Stone what real military precision looks like. No more of these chaotic human tactics. We will demonstrate proper warfare." Katie smiled to herself as she listened. Zekthar was about to give her exactly the opportunity she needed. Tomorrow would be very interesting indeed. Katie Morgan stepped off the transport ship and looked up at the massive alien vessel floating in space. The ship was called the Shadowbane, and it was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its dark metal hull twisted and curved in strange ways. Red lights blinked along its sides like angry eyes watching her. She took a deep breath and checked her uniform one more time. Everything had to be perfect. This was her first real assignment after finishing the Terran Naval Academy. She was nervous, but also excited. Working with aliens was something she had dreamed about since she was a little girl. The docking bay doors opened with a loud hiss. Katie walked inside and immediately felt the difference. The air was thicker here, and it smelled like metal and something she could not name. The gravity felt heavier too. Her boots made loud clicking sounds on the strange purple floor. A tall alien waited for her near the entrance. He had gray skin that looked like stone, and his eyes were bright yellow. 4 arms hung at his sides, each one bigger than Katie's entire body. This was her first time seeing a Vorthan up close. "You must be the human," the alien said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks falling down a mountain. "I am Lieutenant Commander Vex. Follow me. Do not touch anything." Katie nodded, and followed him through the ship's corridors. The walls were covered with symbols that glowed and moved. Other aliens walked past them, but none of them looked at Katie. She saw creatures with blue skin and gills on their necks, others with fur and long tails, and some that looked like walking trees. They stopped in front of a large door. Vex pressed his hand against a panel, and the door slid open. "The commander is waiting," he said. Katie walked into what must be the bridge. It was huge, with screens and controls everywhere. In the center sat a chair that looked more like a throne, and in that chair sat the biggest Vorthan Katie had ever imagined. Commander Zeke-Thar was at least 8 feet tall, even sitting down. His skin was darker than Vex's, almost black, and covered with scars. His 4 arms moved constantly, touching different controls and screens. When he looked at Katie, his yellow eyes seemed to burn with anger. "So," Zeke-Thar said, his voice filling the entire bridge, "they send me a child." Katie stood as straight as she could. "Lieutenant Katie Morgan reporting for duty, sir." Zeke-Thar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. It was cold and mean. "Lieutenant, you look like you should still be in school, playing with toy ships." Some of the other aliens on the bridge started laughing too. Katie felt her face get hot, but she did not move. She had trained for this. She knew some aliens would not respect humans at first. "I graduated top of my class, sir," Katie said. "I am ready to serve." "Top of your class?" Zeke-Thar stood up from his chair. He was even bigger than Katie thought. "Your human class? That means nothing here, child. This is a real ship with real warriors, not a playground for babies." Katie saw movement from the corner of her eye. Another human was standing near one of the control stations. He was young, maybe a few years older than Katie. He looked angry about what Zeke-Thar was saying. "Sir," the human said, stepping forward, "Lieutenant Morgan has excellent test scores in tactical analysis, and did I ask you to speak, Ensign?" "Collins?" Zeke-Thar's voice was like thunder. The human, Jake Collins, stepped back quickly. "No, I did not." "Keep your mouth shut." Zeke-Thar turned back to Katie. "You want to know what job I have for you, little girl? You can sit in the corner and watch the communication screen. Try not to break anything important." More laughter came from the alien crew. Katie felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She had worked so hard to get here. She had studied for years, learned alien languages, and trained in zero gravity, until she was sick. And now this alien was treating her like she was nothing. "Communications, sir?" Katie asked. "I was hoping to work in tactical or navigation. My scores in those areas were. Your scores mean nothing." Zeke-Thar slammed one of his huge fists on his chair. The sound echoed through the bridge. "I do not care what your human teachers told you. I do not care about your dreams or hopes. You are weak. Humans are weak. You will do what I tell you, or you will get off my ship." Katie felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she forced them back. She would not cry in front of these aliens. She would not give them the satisfaction. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "I cannot hear you," Zeke-Thar said. "Yes, sir," Katie said louder. "Good. Maybe you can learn after all." Zeke-Thar sat back down in his chair. "Vex, show the human child to her station, and make sure she understands that if she causes any problems, she will spend the rest of this mission cleaning waste recyclers." Vex led Katie to a small station in the back corner of the bridge. The chair was too big for her, and the controls were designed for alien hands. She had to stretch to reach some of the buttons. "Your job is simple," Vex explained. "Watch the communication channels. If any important messages come in, tell me. Do not make decisions. Do not give suggestions. Just watch and report." Katie nodded. As Vex walked away, She heard more whispers and laughter from the other aliens. She pretended to study her screens, but she was really thinking. Something was wrong with their formation. Katie could see it on the tactical display that was visible from her station. They were flying in a standard Vorthan battle pattern, but it had a weak spot. If enemy ships came from a certain angle, they could hit the Shadowbane before anyone could react. Katie looked around the bridge. Should she say something? Zekthar had just humiliated her in front of everyone. He had made it clear that he did not want her opinions, but lives could be in danger. Katie took a deep breath and stood up. Commander Zekthar? The big alien turned his head slowly. His yellow eyes looked annoyed. What now, human? Sir, I notice our formation has a potential weakness. If enemy ships approach from coordinates 127 Mark 83, ENOUGH. Zekthar's roar shook the entire bridge. Did I ask for your opinion? Did I say you could look at tactical displays? No, sir, but nothing. You are here to watch communications. Nothing else. Perhaps the human child should return to playing with toy ships where she cannot hurt anyone. The bridge erupted in laughter again. This time it was louder and meaner. Katie felt her face burning with shame. Even some of the aliens who had not laughed before were laughing now. Jake Collins looked like he wanted to help her, but he did not dare speak again. Katie was completely alone. She sat back down at her station and stared at her screens. Her hands were shaking, and her heart was beating fast. She had never been so embarrassed in her life, but as she sat there, something changed inside her. Shame was still there, but it was mixing with something else. Anger, determination. Katie began to really look at her surroundings for the first time. She watched how the crew worked together. She studied the ship's systems. She listened to conversations. She began to form a plan.